Welcome back to But Why Though, the podcast, where we talk about the things in pop culture that matter and ask the question, but why though? Today's episode, we're talking about everybody's favorite web-slinging superhero, Spider-Man. And as always, I am your host, Kate, and I'm here with Adrian.
Hey, how's it going?
And Matt.
Hello.
And as always, we're going to start off with our introductory question. First, how familiar are you with Spider-Man? And second, who's your favorite Spider-Man? Matt?
I'm kind of very familiar with Spider-Man. Spider-Man's probably my favorite comic book hero out of everybody. And obviously my favorite Spider-Man is Peter Parker, the one and only Spider-Man.
The one and only?
Yes.
Which rendition of Spider-Man though?
Or
Peter Parker, I guess.
Okay, probably pre-Disney taking over Peter Parker. So probably more, I like the 90s type Spider-Man. And I guess before that with those comics and series.
Nice.
We'll probably talk about it more, but before what Disney has done to Spider-Man in the last 10 years.
What about you, Adrian?
I mean, I've been familiar with Spider-Man for a while. Like back in the 90s, like I would say probably like the heyday of animated comic book superheroes. You know, Spider-Man was one of the ones I was watching all the time, so that's probably where I first saw him, and then he's just always stuck around. He's just one of those characters that you just love. Like, I don't know anyone who doesn't like Spider-Man. Like, there's people who are like, oh, I don't like Superman because blah, 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 but I think never met anyone who doesn't like Spider-Man. He's just a great character. I think my favorite Spider-Man is, I would have to say it's like Spider-Man 2099, just because he's badass.
Okay.
Miguel O'Hara. I had a comment from him way back in the day, and I was like, man, this dude is way different than Peter Parker, and I like the difference.
Yeah. Nice. I think for me, so I've loved Spider-Man. Obviously not my favorite because X-Men is. But I would say X-Men and Spider-Man, like my comic book knowledge is probably, both of those are pretty close. Like I probably know about them the most. And I really like Tobey Maguire as Spider-Man. Not emo Tobey Maguire before you at me, but
you're going to get added, period, for that.
No, first movie Tobey is a really good... Okay.
He's a terrible Spider-Man.
He's a really good Peter Parker.
There you go.
He's a really good Peter Parker, which I really like. And we'll talk about it a little bit later, like Spider-Man's one of those characters who is fleshed out both as a superhero and not. And I think that's really awesome. But I think my favorite Spider-Man character is Miles Morales. So he's from the Ultimate Marvel series. And I love him because he has a tragic story as well.
Copycat.
He's kind of responsible for Peter's death. Also
horrible.
Or at least he thinks he is.
He is.
But as always, we will have a leader for this episode. So our fearless leader will be Matt to bring us through the wonderful world of Spider-Man today. Take it away.
Take it away.
Okay.
So I get to do, probably as usual, go with a little history. Obviously, Spider-Man, been a lot. He's been a big fan favorite. So I'm going to try to keep this history kind of short so we can kind of talk about a lot of the other things, other than just like listing every single thing he's done over the years.
We could probably do 2 hours of just listing
things. Getting ready for this episode probably took me like at least 3 hours just to do trying to narrow down just the history alone on what to put and how to try to condense this. But let's see what we can do here. So, he was created in 1962 by Stan Lee and Steve... Ditko. I always want to say Dilko. Sergeant Dilko. But his first appearance in the Amazing 15, or the number 15, was his first appearance. Then he ended up having his own first comic starting the following year, because he was very successful. Basically, the Amazing Spider-Man comics. That was the first one that took off. And so we'll kind of go into, basically, as we talked about, Peter Parker was his alter ego. His parents died, murdered, gone, depending on what storyline. It was kind of a mystery for the longest time, I guess.
They didn't really address it, right?
Yeah, it was never really addressed at any time. They just kind of said, your parents are gone. So he was raised by his Uncle Ben and Aunt May. Well, from what I know, Stanley and Steve Ditko, they kind of wanted to conceive this character like he was raised like an orphan was. So he was kind of raised by his uncle and aunt. Most of the time he was portrayed as a teenager, a high schooler, and obviously into a college student. That's usually where they always take place. I think in the later renditions, he finally like grows up and whatnot. So he basically gets all his superpowers by being bitten by a radioactive spider is what it usually says. I've always said experimental radioactive spider because usually these aren't just your normal.
They're not just walking around out in the wild.
Yeah, radiation kills things and it's going to kill you. So a normal radioactive spider would kill you for the most part.
If comics taught me anything, it means I get superpowers.
Yeah. So he gets bit by this experimental radioactive spider and he gets genetic mutations. And he kind of gets like almost like spider-like abilities. So he's able to cling to walls. He ends up with super strength, agility, speed, reflexes. He has great equilibrium or balance. He also has basically a kind of a healing factor. It's not kind of doesn't really play a bigger role like in, say, your Wolverine or Deadpool, but it does happen. It has basically his two, I guess, most popular abilities, which is one's called the Spider Sense. It's almost like enhanced situational awareness. He gets like a tingle in his like, almost I want to say it's not as cerebral cortex. What? What?
He gets a tingle.
Yeah, I get tingles somewhere too in places I can't really say. So I understand where you're going.
Yeah. Anyways, so basically...
Is your spider sense tingling right now?
No, because I'm not in dangers. So basically, it alerts him of
Mine
danger.
doesn't happen in danger, so it's okay.
Yeah. Anytime he feels threatened in the level of threat, he gets a tingle in basically the back of his cranium and kind of down his neck. So if you ever get that thing shot down the neck, he kind of has it enhanced. They don't really ever explain, like, why he has this or how he got this exactly. It's just kind of...
I just realized you could have explained the tingle, like, as goosebumps. Because that's always how they animate it.
Sort of. They've always played off the cranium. You don't really get goosebumps usually in your head. So, you guys are killing this for me. Anyways, moving on here.
I think it's awesome.
Whatever. Anyway, Spider Sense, it's basically like enhanced situational awareness. It kind of, when he feels danger or senses danger, then he kind of gets a notion that, oh, I sense this, do something. And then, obviously, his web shooters... Or in the Tobey Maguire one, he has spinnerets in his wrist from the genetic mutation, which at some time Stan Lee has actually said that I kind of wish I thought of that. But and pretty much almost all the renditions he has basically web shooters that he had made and whatnot. Whew. So going on, we'll kind of talk about, I guess, where he's been, because he's been in a ton of movies, a ton of different media, and a ton of different games. We'll start off with, obviously, the comic that I mentioned earlier, the Amazing Spider-Man comics. It ran from the year 1963 to the very, very end of 2012, so about 50 years. I think they celebrated the 700th issue as a 50-year mark to close it. And basically, they did have a few hiatuses. I believe in 95, they kind of took a little break. There was a few relaunches, kind of, sort of renumberings involved. But it's pretty much one of the longest running comics there is. Smaller note, they had actually a Broadway musical that ran from 2011 to 2014. Let's just say it was very, very expensive. It was a flash in a pan. It made a lot of money really quick, and then it happened to unfortunately not be that well.
It's like Batman versus Superman.
Yeah. It actually held the record for highest box office sales for 1 week at 2.9 million.
I also like how a lot of like the big pop culture things that we're talking about have musicals, and it makes me really happy because I want to go watch them.
Yeah. When this one came out, I thought about it, but obviously where we live, I don't know how much it actually came in that general time frame. But yeah, I do remember it being, unfortunately, not as well. Getting to the movies, there's a ton of movies. Obviously, there's a ton little movie series that took place in the late 70s to the 80s. It kind of like, it's weird. It's like there was a 2-season like TV show, but then it had like 3 movies that kind of spun off of this TV show. I mean, they were kind of famous, but they weren't really big. Probably the majority of the people, especially like our generation, know the movies from the early 2000s to the end of 2000s. The Sam Raimi?
Sam Raimi.
Raimi films is what they call it. And basically with Tobey Maguire, as Kate mentioned earlier, Spider-Man 1, 2, and 3. They didn't get creative with any of their names as they moved on.
Well, one of the really interesting things that happened when Sam Raimi was brought onto the Spider-Man franchise is he's a horror director. And so people were kind of worried, but really excited at the same time that he was going to bring his spin to Spider-Man, which I thought was really great. And then after these kind of fizzle out, then he's like, okay, I'm going back to horror. I tried the superhero thing.
Well, there actually were plans for a Spider-Man 4 and even a 5, and then it just kind of took too long. And they said you had to have it done by this, and he's like, I can't do that because Spider-Man 3 ended up being
Tobey Maguire.
Yeah, kind of a letdown, and so he just kind of withdrew from the project.
And the weird Topher Grace as Venom.
Yes.
Yeah, such a bad choice.
Yeah.
Such a terrible, terrible choice. Like, what an awful Eddie Brock. Like, Jesus Christ, man.
Yeah. Of all Eddie Brocks they could have chosen, that was definitely an odd one.
Like, you could have found, like, any meathead to play Eddie Brock, and it would have been amazing. But you picked...
who would have been amazing? The Rock.
Tom Hardy.
Ooh, Tom Hardy. You gotta give that guy a mask. He does well in masks.
Hey, you know, that's why he's playing Venom in the new fucking movie, so...
Yeah, we're going to see, which should be interesting how that actually plays out.
I'm excited.
I mean, I'm excited for the movie, but I guess as Kate will talk about with the whole licensing and separation and everything else. And then they had, basically Sony then made their own little Andrew Garfield movies, The Amazing Spider-Man and The Amazing Spider-Man 2 in 2012 and 2014.
And
I think these are the opposite. I thought Andrew Garfield played a good Spider-Man, but not a great Peter Parker. In my opinion, he was a way worse Peter Parker than Tobey Maguire was a bad Spider-Man. Yeah, no, I agree.
He was like painfully bad as Peter Parker.
Yeah, no,
he was YouTubing how batteries worked. Peter Parker's a genius. He was YouTubing how batteries worked. Yes. Are you kidding me?
He also came off as bratty.
And too cool and like popular. Get out of here. We don't need Andrew Garfield as our Spider-Man. Thank you. I'm glad that's over with.
I am too. I didn't care for the second one. I think they started reverting kind of. I thought it was a little too childish.
Yeah, it was like 17 villains in there.
Yeah. And then that leads all the way up to basically the MCU films where he first finally made an appearance coming back in 2016 with Civil War and the new movie.
Yeah, by the time of this recording, or by the time this is released, like it'll be coming out the day after, basically.
Yeah, something like that. Spider-Man, Homecoming, 2017.
Which we will be in the seats, so look out for that BS Corner coming your way. And I just kind of want to step in here and talk a little bit about, like, everybody's hyped for Spider-Man Homecoming, and the reason it's Homecoming is because this is going to be the first Spider-Man film that Marvel actually gets to make. So Marvel owns... Licensing rights are weird. So Marvel owns the rights in print and in television, but they don't own the rights for video game or for motion picture. So they couldn't do anything with Spider-Man in that realm. And then essentially Sony was losing a crap ton of money and was like, we need help. And they were like, give him to us for Civil War. We'll do stuff with you. And so now it's a joint venture where they're bringing him into the Marvel universe. But if you ever just want to go down a wormhole, plug for Other Side of the Wormhole with Matt, just look up all the weird things that keeps Marvel from doing stuff in the MCU so far as licensing.
Spider-Man because Sony was going broke.
I said that.
I know, but that was literally mainly the only reason.
Okay.
And the fact that Fantastic Four failed. They sold it because Sony was going broke, and they needed money.
But they didn't sell it. They still retained
they retained it, but they needed money to keep going.
Yeah, they retained ownership, but they gave the rights to Marvel. Like, they let Marvel have creative freedom in it, and then then they said, well, we will produce a video game. That video game can only come out on our Sony platform.
Right.
So that way they make all the revenue from the video games, and that also gives Marvel a launching point to do a new Spider-Man series television-wise.
Basically, Sony and Fox need to give up their rights to those Marvel stuff and let Marvel just do them better.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Before we go into all the animated shows, I kind of want to talk about, I guess, the weird thing when I was looking this up, because obviously we all talk about games. We just did an esports episode about 2 weeks ago, and we all play video games. Looking this up, there's approximately about 37 or so standalone video games across about 15 different platforms from about 1981 to, as she just mentioned, the new one coming out on next year.
Yeah.
And this does not even include all the games such as like Marvel vs. Capcom or Marvel Ultimate Alliance or such like that, where he's just actually a character you can play. Those are just like his own like standalone where he's a main character type games. And I thought for a character that was just insane. I didn't realize there were that many of them.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
more games than Lara Croft.
Yeah, Ultimate Spider-Man was like, I probably played that game hundreds of hours as a kid on my GameCube. That game was amazing. That's why
Played
I'm
all
salty
the Tobey
about
Maguire Spider-Mans.
the PS4 exclusive for this next one, because it looks like
Yeah.
Ultimate Spider-Man, and I'm jealous.
Yeah, it actually looks really, really good, but unfortunately, they tried to make it exclusive because that's what Sony loves to do. But yeah, I just want to throw it in there a little tidbit because it is kind of a big part of Spider-Man, but it's just there was so much to go. So we'll go to the animated shows. There's a lot of these, so I'm going to try to only talk about maybe a few of them. And these are probably only the main ones that you could probably think. You could just sit here and talk about them for a while. The first one is Spider-Man from 1967 to 70, and basically this Spider-Man best known just for the Spider-Man theme song. The theme song that everybody knows
Oh, it's gonna be in my head now.
came
Just
from
do it,
this
Kate.
one.
Just get it out of your system because you know you want to do it.
Spider-Man. Does what that? No, it's Spider-Pig. Why Spider-Pig come in my head?
No, that's
Okay.
the thing.
That's no, it went off.
Yeah. Okay. Anyways.
Spins a web. Okay, I'm sorry. Look out! Here comes Spider-Man. Okay, I'm done.
Yeah.
It's not X-Men though.
Yeah. So in 1981, Spider-Man, which kind of branches into Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, didn't last as long, just a year. And then I'm gonna skip over. Well, I guess I don't have to. But then the next one would be 1994 series, through 98. It has probably one of the best series. Obviously, Adrian will disagree because there is another one that ends up being pretty good as well, but not my favorite. The 91. Obviously, I guess the age group differences whatnot. I enjoy the 90s one best. It also seems to be the most popular, at least from like one when they see all your cartoons or your memes and whatnot else. That would be the one that usually is used.
Just finish your list and then we can talk about it a little bit.
Yeah. The next one would be Spider-Man Unlimited, 1999. Only had one season.
Should have had more.
Yeah.
It's
Adrian-
good, man. If you've never seen Spider-Man Unlimited, picture like Batman Beyond, but like of the Spider-Man universe.
Yeah,
it's
pretty
weird. His suit is different. The villains are weird, but it works. I like it. It was good.
Yeah. It was all right. It definitely was just weird. Sometimes threw me off. I guess we will mention this one, but
Neil Patrick Harris.
yeah, the new animated series in 2003. I'm not gonna lie, I could only watch 2 episodes. The animation drove me insane. It hurt my head.
I will say this: the story was actually really good in that one.
I couldn't make it because the animation pixels were coming at me too much.
Terrible.
Yes.
Yeah, like
And
Beast
then-
Wars.
Yeah. Think upgraded version of Beast Wars. So many polygons. Spider-Man the Spectacular, Spider-Man the Spectacular Spider-Man in 2008 was another one. This was actually a pretty good one, but unfortunately it was canceled in the middle because Disney had bought bought Marvel at the time in 2000, I believe it was 9 or so, and the actual show was owned by Sony.
I would also want to point out what makes the licensing thing really weird is everybody goes bankrupt, and that's the reason Marvel doesn't own its rights, is because they were going bankrupt, sold them off to everybody, and then we're going bankrupt again, and then Disney was like, we'll save you, we'll buy you out. And
Yeah,
then that
pretty
happened.
much. Just a bunch of large companies bailing each other out till they get on a streak, and then we'll bail you right back out. The newest one that just finished up actually this year was the Ultimate Spider-Man that ran from basically 2013 to 2017. It is the longest Marvel cartoon to date at 104 episodes.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah, I liked it. I say I like it, but it kind of bugged me because it was definitely a lot more. It was designed for kids more.
Yeah,
like
it was
a
like
7
was
to
it
10
like Disney
range.
XDs where it was at, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's probably like
So
a
it's-
7 to 10 age range.
Yeah,
you
so
do
it's
get a
just
whole
different.
You get Nova in there. You get a whole bunch of other superheroes too. Like, it's not just Spider-Man. I will say this: if you're only going to watch one episode of it, go watch the Deadpool episode.
Yeah, that was pretty
one's
good.
So good.
Yeah, that's good.
But this one just ended, and now they're basically replacing that one with somebody didn't mess with that.
With Miles Morales and
Oh, there it is. Marvel Spider-Man, premiering, I believe, in September of this year.
Yep, with Miles Morales and Spider-Gwen. Which
That's
I
cool.
don't know how they're going to do Spider-Gwen, though.
I don't know.
Because
Apparently all three of them are supposed to be in there. I'm not exactly sure.
I'm kind of confused by that because Spider-Gwen like exists in an alternate Spider-Verse where she gets bit and is the spider person versus Peter Parker, and Peter Parker is the one who ends up being a bad, like he like mutates into a lizard man.
Yes.
And so like it's completely different time. It can work with Miles, but it can't like Spider-Gwen writes out Peter Parker from ever being a Spider-Man. So, yeah. I don't know how that's going to work.
I honestly don't know.
All 4 more miles, but...
So, going back, because that was pretty much how we're up to date with the animated shows, but going back, I kind of want to know, Adrian, did you watch, I'm assuming you watched the 90s Spider-Man, correct?
Yeah, of course. It was the first Spider-Man I watched.
Yeah.
So
I was just kind of wondering, good. I was wondering basically, because you say you obviously like the Spectacular Spider-Man, I think you said that you like that one better, so I was just kind of wondering.
I just thought the animation was better. Like, I think it holds up better over time. Like, if you go back and watch that, the 90s Spider-Man, it doesn't hold up like the way that, like, Batman the Animated Series holds up now. Because they both are, like, true to the comics for a lot of it.
Yes.
But it's just like old animation versus new animation, and you get Peter Parker in high school, which I like better than him in college. So it's, I don't know. I don't think it's like, I don't know. I just like that one better. Like it was really, really good. If not for the licensing thing, like everyone thought that it was going to be, the next Batman the Animated Series, like that tier of goodness, and it just didn't happen because like it was on schedule for 65 episodes, just like Spider-Man the Animated Series was.
Yeah.
It just didn't reach it. I think if it would have reached it, it would probably be like the definitive Spider-Man.
I will say this. It is dated. You know why?
Why?
The pant animation.
Big
Baggy pant bulge thing that is like total like mid-2000s WB kids cartoon like pants.
Yeah, it's pretty
I don't know
dated.
if that makes sense, but like Static Shock had the exact same pants drawn on everybody just like that.
Which is kind of funny because basically that one got canceled like because of the Sony and Disney thing. The 90s series also was canceled, not because of ratings or anything, but literally because of disagreements among like the executive producer and the network.
Really?
Network manager. It's the only reason that show was canceled.
Really?
Poor Spidey.
Yeah, that was so the 2 best Spider-Man shows have been canceled because people disagree, not because of poor ratings. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that one's obviously my favorite one. Obviously, I guess I was more of a kid to have time to watch TVs in the 90s than I did in the late 2000s. Not that
I was in high school like in the late 2000s, like when that was coming out. So it's not like I was like...
Yeah, I think I just finished high school. So, it wasn't like I was
you're
really
old
old or anything.
You're old.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah, it's a busy time. But, they're both rated pretty high. You have this one said, I guess, on the IGN list of 2009. I wasn't exactly sure. That was the only list I saw for that one. That IGN had as 84th best animated series. Mm-hmm. I guess that one was the 30th or so.
Yeah, it's crazy. Well, because just like, I'm sure it's some initial bias, but I even went to look at like some of the IGN list for like best Spider-Mans for some more recent years, and they still rank Spectacular Spider-Man above Batman or Spider-Man the Animated Series. But the cooler thing is that Spider-Man as like TV shows has multiple shows on that list. I don't think any other comic book superhero series has. Like they have Spider-Man and his Amazing Friends at 59, and then you have the Spectacular Spider-Man at 30, and then of course, like you said, Spider-Man the Animated Series at 84. I do think there's like a little bias because this article came out that listing came out when Spectacular Spider-Man like was still a thing and like wasn't canceled yet. So I'm sure there was like some biases there.
I just find it kind of interesting that Spider-Man and his Amazing Friends is so rated high, but it literally only has 1 season.
Yeah.
And so
well, just what it did for...
Hey, seasons cannot define the greatness of it.
Yeah, that one's on there
year,
just because like what it did for superhero, comic book TV shows. Like,
because that one didn't spark...
Pioneer.
It sparked, I believe, the Hulk TV show in those as well.
Yeah, it was definitely a pioneer in its own right. Yeah,
one of
there's
the things I
three
wanna
three
know-
shows on it. It's crazy.
Like, one of the things I want to know, too, is, like, how does it... I don't know if anybody knows the numbers off the top of their head. You probably don't. But how does this compare to, like... There's a crap ton of Spider-Man TV shows.
Mm-hmm.
Like, are there that many TV shows for, like, other properties? Because, like...
There's a bunch of
I-
Batmans. And
There's a bunch of
Batman, the
Batmans.
animated series, is the only one that was on that list.
Some of those other
Yeah.
Batmans really aren't that good, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're all right, but they're definitely not even.
But I didn't think there was that many Batmans compared to, like, these Batmans.
No,
Or-
Batman.
There's a lot of
There's a
Batmans.
lot of Batmans.
Okay.
Batmans have been running a series, kind of like the Spider-Man is with here, where basically they run a show for about 2 to 3 years, and then they kind of add another show, like reboot it
'Cause I just
somewhat or
remember
twist it a little bit. And yeah.
Batman Beyond, Batman, if you want to throw in Justice Leagues, and then Brave and the Bold, and then that weird one we watched on Amazon Prime. No. No, I don't know what it is called. We need to talk about Batman. Sorry, I'm trying. I'm trying to like contextualize it for myself because I think I guess for me, I've seen at least one episode of every single one of these animated shows.
Yeah.
Versus like I didn't know that there were that many Batmans. So I think that like for me that kind of shows me how important Spider-Man has been for like my cartoon loving self. Like I've actively tried to watch more Spider-Man cartoons.
Yeah, what
I've
is it?
seen
You have
almost all
like
the, sorry.
you have like Batman the Brave and the Bold,
Right.
like Batman Adventures or something like that.
Yep.
You had the Batman the animated series. Like yeah, there's quite a few. I mean,
I've
even
watched
if you
all of
count
those.
like
They're just not
the
memorable.
old school Batmans with Adam West, R.I.P. Adam West, like even that didn't make it on the list. So there's a lot there. But I do see what you're saying though, because I don't think there's like a bunch. I mean, there are some Superman series, but definitely not to the level that you have Batman and Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, I think we'll probably, when we get to some of the But Why Thos for, as Spider-Man, like Marvel's flagship character, why there's probably so many.
Yeah.
So probably the last part here before we get wrapping up is the Ultimate Spider-Mans. There's obviously Peter Parker, probably the most famous and most well-known, but there's also bunches and bunches of people that play other Spider-Mans. There's an entire Spider-Verse of just full of Spider-Mans and women's and even actual like spiders, I think, sometimes.
Yeah, there are actual spiders.
Yeah, I think there's actual spiders. I think there's a spider pig where they do not only just from the whole thing, but there is a spider pig.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah.
He's in
So,
Sketchman,
like,
the Ultimate Spider-Man, the one that just finished up. There's like a whole episode
Yes.
with all different kinds of
It's like
Spider-Mans.
a 3-part
Yep.
series, right?
Yeah, that one
Yes.
is really
Right
good.
through.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and Spider
Yeah.
Pig's in there.
Yep.
Yeah.
And Night Spider-Man. I like the Night Spider-Man. That one is dope.
Oh, is that the one where he's like, where they make it come like a Noir type thing?
A what?
Oh,
yeah,
never
yeah.
mind,
That I mean that like that episode you're talking about, like
Yeah.
that noir Spider-Man. Like
I like
that's
that
all
Noir
it-
one more than the
Noir?
Noir one. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's like an
noir.
old, like, cool, like,
Okay,
Dick
yeah, I
Tracy
know
top
what.
type.
Yeah, I know what noir
Yeah.
is. I
Okay.
couldn't figure out what you were saying.
Yeah.
Okay.
Words are hard. It's all good.
So, since
Yeah,
Kate
lots
says
of
how much
Spider-Mans.
she loves Miles Morales, we're going to go ahead and let her talk about some of the other Spider-Mans, per se, for a little bit here.
Yeah, so Miles Morales is taking off. I don't want to say taking off in popularity because he's been popular since he was created for the most part. But when he's being featured a lot more. Kevin Feige just announced that he is going to be in the MCU. We don't know in what capacity. And then, like Matt said earlier on, he is getting his own TV show. And the really cool thing is that the creators of Miles Morales actually based him off of Donald Glover. And Donald Glover is the person that's going to be doing the voice for him.
Oh, that's cool.
Huh?
That's cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah, so like they used him and his character, like they used Donald Glover for like the large part of who Miles is, and they also, so what happened was when President Obama was being elected, pretty much people realized, and people at Marvel realized, hey, we need more representation in our comics. We have it here. We're getting it more in our country at the highest levels. Why not Spider-Man? Like everybody knows Spider-Man. Let's do it. This made people really mad. They were like, this is just political correctness. That type of thing that always gets said. But Stan Lee actually came out and was like, I love Miles Morales. We need, everybody deserves to have a superhero, and I'm really happy that they're taking a character that I made and making him be representative of more people than just Peter Parker. And so he's been a big hit. His story is really close to Spider-Man, so he does get bit by a radioactive spider, doesn't die, he gets superpowers, and he pretty much has all of the Spider-Man powers, except he also has camouflage, and he can control the electricity that his body puts out, which lets him do pretty cool things. And his entire storyline goes over, he finds out he has powers, refuses to be a Spider-Man, or, do anything, because Peter Parker's running around the city at this time, and he says, no, we already have one. We don't need another one. I'll leave it all to Peter. And then Peter Parker Spider-Man ends up dying, saving his parents, and Miles arrives to the scene too late. And so he really takes this guilt with him in an almost, Batman type way, survivor's guilt, I should have been the one that died doing that, and so he goes around and he starts saving things. So he's first known as a Prowler and stuff like that, but, I could go on forever about Miles Morales, but this isn't a Miles Morales episode. Long story short...
Right. He's a Spider-Man.
He's important. He's growing in importance in his stuff. Matt doesn't like anybody who isn't Peter Parker.
I think he's literally just a copy rip-off.
I don't think it's a rip-off.
Why? He literally got bit by a radioactive spider. The chances of getting powers in the first place, let alone again... You even said the storyline's almost exactly the same.
But I don't understand why that makes you mad.
They killed Peter Parker just so they could have him.
But it's in the Ultimate. So let me specify here. He's in the Ultimate Marvel universe, which is separate from a lot of... So Peter Parker as Spider-Man's comic can run concurrently with Ultimates, because Ultimates is its own universe. If anybody who reads comics knows there's multiple Earths, multiple things that they run within, and this is contained within the Ultimate universe itself. I get what you're saying. It's a ripoff, but it's, with the X-Men, you can just introduce a new one all the time, and I think...
Yeah, so Spider-Man was unique, and they literally had to basically just make a copycat of him.
I don't think that's bad, though, and neither do any of the people who created him, including Stan Lee, who initially made Spider-Man. It's taking a character, taking it, and doing something, starting off the same, but he goes through a lot of stuff that Peter does not go through. When you actually go through his full story, his origins kind of sound similar, but then again, every hero does something after somebody they love dies.
Mm-hmm.
That is just what happens in the hero universe. We talked about it with dead moms. We talked about it with dead dads. Talked about it with negligent dads.
It's all right, Matt. If you want a Spider-Man with, a different background and you don't like that one, go read some of the Spider-Man 2099 stuff, because I personally think that Miguel O'Hara is way more interesting than Miles Morales is, just because their stories are different, and he was the first Latino character to take up the identity before Miles Morales, so Miles Morales copied Miguel O'Hara half of him.
Well, yeah, because the cool thing about Miles Morales is he's Afro-Latino, so he's half black and I believe half Puerto Rican.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, so he does that, and I don't know, you can say it's a ripoff, but the whole thing is we can take characters we love and we can add more to the universe, and it doesn't detract from the power from the original. It just lets other people fall in love with different characters. They killed the original. And then had him running in his own comic in a different area.
They literally killed him so we could have Miles.
But he still had a comic going. They didn't write him out of existence.
Well, yeah, you couldn't write him out of existence.
Peter Parker still has stuff happening.
It's okay, you still got Tom Holland.
Yeah.
In addition to adding Miles Morales, there's a giant spider universe with different Spider-Men and women that inhabit it. You also get Spider-Gwen, which is an entirely different universe, so this one's not a ripoff. She only goes for, she's I think it's contained within one small volume, and it's essentially, like I said earlier, an alternate reality where pretty much Peter Parker doesn't get bit and Gwen gets bit instead. And then another popular Spider-Man is also Silk, who is an Asian American Spider-Woman named Cindy Moon. I believe she's Korean American. And in her storyline, she actually gets bit at the same time as Peter, but Peter doesn't become aware of her until 13 years later. And she has a type of anti-hero type background thing.
Yeah.
But I never
her
really
story's
read
messed
too
up.
much of Silk.
Yeah, like she's like locked away forever. It's messed up. And then like her and Peter Parker have like this just attraction, just like primal attraction to each other. It gets hot and heavy with them. It's cool. She's a cool character. I looked into it a little bit about the Spider-Gwen and Miles Morales thing. I think it's like a cross-dimensional thing, but they definitely like kissed earlier this year in one of it was like Spider-Man number 12 or something like that.
Miles
like they're definitely
and Spider-Gwen, or
yeah, they're definitely an item.
Oh
in,
wow,
like,
I did not know that.
that continuity. So
How is the age difference in that? Because last I knew, Gwen was about the same age as Peter, and Miles was about 13, and Peter
I think
was
it's like
about...
17 and 19.
Okay.
From what I was reading, just briefly. That's just me skimming it. I haven't picked up a Spider-Man comic in a while, but yeah, from what I was reading, it's 17 and 19. So they, with Gwen being older, obviously.
Right. Yeah, I didn't know how they portrayed it because I thought Miles was about at least 5, if not more, years younger than Peter, if I can remember correctly.
Yeah, he's a lot younger.
Yeah.
It's very much like not student teacher, but like somebody who sees his hero and then has that hero taken away and has to fill that void.
Right.
Like it's I look up to you, now I have to do this type thing. And I mean, aside from those main ones, you have a whole bunch of other Spider-Men who also have different cultural backgrounds. You have manga versions of Spider-Man. You have Spider-Man from India. And all these are important because even though they may seem like replicants of the same story, it's the fact that one of the most well-known comic book characters can translate across cultures and be recognized and loved in all these different forms. That's really important.
For sure. That sounds like Matt's first But Why, though. Do you want to get into that, Matt?
Yeah. So basically, the first But Why, though, is basically Spider-Man is huge, and he's big, as she was talking about, across everything. And basically, for a while, he's been Marvel's flagship character, and often the company, like, I guess, quote-unquote, mascot. He's been used in mainstream. He's been in political things, obviously, with all the different various Spider-Mans. He's been across different cultures. He's also apparently the most profitable superhero, I think, at least what I found in 2014, which is just off the licensing products alone. He made more money than Batman, Superman, and the Avengers combined. So he definitely over the years been like big. He's been like ranked high on like basically every comic book hero ranking you can find. He's been like in the top 5, definitely top 10, number 1 quite a bit. He's definitely been Marvel's pretty much number 1 for so many years. I think I kind of listed a few of these, like, 2014 IGN number 1 Marvel, Comic Book Resources 2015 number 1, number 3 IGN 2011, so and so stuff. Obviously, his comics have won a lot of awards over the years, so he's been a very popular and for like well over 50 years. And
yeah, it's crazy that I don't know. I just would have like just naturally assumed Spider-Man or Batman would have like the most licensing products.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess I can see Spider-Man being up there because all my little cousins love Spider-Man. Like he runs around saying, "I'm Spider-Man, I'm Spider-Man," even with like Batman, Superman still being popular today.
Yeah, so I mean, I think even one of the big lists they did for the top superheroes, I think, like I said, the only ones he's really falls behind is literally Batman and probably Superman are the only ones he's basically been to 3. And they've actually done, I think, over time, done crossovers where he's met Superman and Batman at times in some of the comics and shows. So, yeah. But I talked about the mainstream political scene, so he gets chosen for a lot of things as well. So since he is their flagship character, so anytime Marvel wants to, I guess, do something different, either, I guess, diversify or just kind of, I guess do something good and whatnot, I guess I'm trying to say, he gets chosen. So in the 70s, Nixon wanted Stan Lee to do an anti-drug comic book. And so what they did is, sounds great. Sounds definitely
a moral
Nixon.
comic book by Richard Nixon.
Well, I mean, it's anti-drugs.
I like it. I like it.
Yeah. It's anti-drugs, not anti-embezzlement.
Yeah. So Stan Lee was like, yeah, that sounds great. Let's do this. But the comic code, which I didn't actually know existed, apparently they did not like the use of paraphernalia in any type of form, whether good, portrayed positively or negatively in any comics. And so they wouldn't give it a seal of approval. Stan Lee said, I don't care, and released it, and actually was very successful. So due to this, they actually had to go back and revise their code to try to fit this in.
So, like, the weird thing is a comic book code pretty much comes around once you start getting the big three with DC. So it's kind of like no swearing, no drugs, no allusion to drugs, no, no sex, all those types of things. Also, no negative depictions of people of different races. Like, it's, like, really stringent. They didn't enforce a lot of stuff unless it was really overt. Obviously, there's a crap ton of stereotypical characters that come out that are negative representations from that time. It was loosely enforced, but it's something that stayed and didn't actually get changed for a really long time, from like the 40s into, I guess, until this point. I knew it changed, but I didn't know why. I thought they just stopped abiding by it.
No, I believe it. Nixon wanted anti-drugs, but I think the storyline, if I remember correctly, basically Peter's best friend Harry Osborn gets addicted to cocaine.
Not surprised. Rich man problems.
Yeah, which they portray, I think, quite a few storylines where he has drug problems, but apparently they showed cocaine. He was addicted to cocaine. What a coke.
What comic books have taught me, if you're rich, you'll get addicted to something. Yeah. Batman was an alcoholic. Iron Man was an alcoholic. Harry Osborn was addicted to coke.
Yeah.
Many more problems.
Yeah. Also, like the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, which a very popular thing. He was a flagship float, all the big floats. He ran from 1987 to 98, and then again from 2009 to 2011. So it almost ran that's a good 13 years, quite a bit of time of being in there. And then I know Kate has read and seen this issue thing, but also after September 11th, Marvel wanted to do a story dealing with all the aftermath, and so they chose to go with Spider-Man and choose one of his storylines to incorporate that.
Yeah, so with comics, the way they come out monthly, and it's really easy to stay current with what's happening in the world. So there's a Superman September 11th comic, but that comes out a year after. And then this Spider-Man issue is known as the Black issue, and that's because it was a completely black cover with just the words, I think, The Amazing Spider-Man on the top. And when you read through it, it is just Spider-Man narrating the entire thing and having to deal with the fact that he could not save what happened. And the entire issue deals with highlighting the first responders during September 11th and making them as heroes. And it also highlights the fact that everybody in New York, including the villains, there is a still with Magneto and I think Dr. Doom, trying to help people out of it because they're like, I can't believe this type of evil, and it's freaking Magneto and Dr. Doom. And it ends with with an inclusive scene of what New York looks like. And so I know a lot about this comic, and I can go on for a really long time about it because I read it for my master's thesis, and I have a big chunk of it in there kind of analyzing it. But one of the things that this issue was really heralded for is that it created an inclusive picture of New York, and it didn't vilify anybody at a time where it was really easy to do that. And it really focused on showcasing New Yorkers as heroes and first responders as the real heroes, but also putting Spider-Man in a position and putting other heroes of New York in a position and analyzing what happens when you can't be the hero. So it was really, really impactful. You can't get a hard copy unless you want to spend a lot of money, but I believe you can get a digital download for $3.99. So I would really recommend you do it. It's a really good read. And it's probably one of my favorite Spider-Man issues, honestly. So
very impactful.
Yeah.
Before
you move on to the next, But Why Though, Matt, I was looking into because it still blows my mind that Spider-Man makes $1.3 billion. I was looking into it a little bit more. 2/3 of that comes from international. So I think that kind of speaks to. So I think that speaks this, But Why Though, specifically about the global reach that Spider-Man has. And I think some of that has to do with what Kate was talking about earlier with Indian Spider-Man and things like that. It's crazy. I just a quick tidbit from what I was researching while Kate
Well,
was
it's funny
talking
you
about.
say that because it came over, I guess, international, because the next thing I'm going to talk about was in 2008, Marvel wanted to release a series of educational comics partnering with the United Nations, which is obviously very international.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so they basically chose Spider-Man partnering with the United Nations peacekeeping forces, and they basically did a bunch of series educational highlighting peacekeeping missions and whatnot. I haven't actually read any of these, but I thought it was very unique and very cool to do, especially that the United Nations, I guess, once of all. I know we talked about it in the Wonder Woman episode.
Yeah, I was going to say, this is like, I think this kind of just points to how impactful comics are, because this is the second time we're talking about a comic book character being used at a large scale to bring education or awareness to something.
Yeah. And so all this positive stuff and all this, obviously he's well-known, well-renowned and everything else, and flagship and everything else. But to kind of bring back to why, kind of the next one, but why though? Why he's kind of so popular. I mean, kind of the way he is, and then kind of like personally from my point of view, and I'm sure from other people as well. But Spider-Man, when they first made him, they wanted him to be a very flawed character. Like I said, he was conceived as an orphan and whatnot, or that's kind of how they wanted him to be brought up. And what ended up happening when they made this character is he became very relatable to the everyday person. And so, one, that's a big part of his story, that in a lot of his comics and story, his personal life is almost as big as his superhero life. Like, you know, Peter Parker. I mean, you hear about Bruce Wayne, you hear about Tony Stark and whatnot in some of the comics, but you basically know Batman. And even Bruce Wayne goes, I am Batman. Whereas Peter Parker, I mean, there's some comics and some shows where Peter Parker might dominate more than just Spider-Man itself.
And I think that's, like, because I mean, so, and I know some people may make the comment, like, oh, he's a good Bruce Wayne, but he's not a good Batman. Personally, I haven't felt like I've known both characters fully. Like, for Batman, I feel like he's Batman in and out of Batman costume. I don't feel like Clark Kent really matters that much. Sorry, Superman fans. But I feel like when I watch, or when I have watched Spider-Man on the big screen, the fact that I can say this actor was a great Peter Parker, but a bad Spider-Man, or this actor was a great Spider-Man, is because the animated series and the comics have done so well rounding out both sides of the coin in a way that I don't think any other series really does. I mean, we just talked about Wonder Woman, and Wonder Woman's kind of Wonder Woman. There's no real struggle between two personalities, or like two lives interrupting each other, really.
Yeah, you don't get it, like, literally almost anywhere else of the alter ego being just as important. Like maybe Bruce Wayne, like you said, like, but for the TV, like for the movies and stuff, because he can't be Batman the entire time, so maybe that's why that's a little bit more prevalent. But in terms of like the TV series and stuff, you just care about him being Batman in the TV series. But in the TV series for Spider-Man, you want to see them both. And I think what you said, definitely, like, he's definitely probably the most relatable superhero that I can think of. I mean, he's not overly rich. He's not,
He's poor.
He's poor.
Yeah.
He's super poor.
He's not getting all the ladies. He's not,
Because he even struggles with Mary Jane.
Yeah,
or Gwen Stacy, depending on.
Well, that's why when they came out,
more.
when they kind of were creating him too, when he first started out, is it basically attracted a lot of young readers and brought out, because I mean, they obviously portray him as a high school student and kind of moves into college, but when the first originally thing was he was a high school student, so just the struggle of being a teenager in general, like you guys were talking about, with failed, romantic relationships. He had a lot of failed personal friendships. I mean, he basically lived with his aunt and uncle for a while until his uncle unfortunately is killed.
What are you talking about?
Spoilers.
Yeah. And also was when they made this character and they wanted him to be flawed with the alter ego, because not only just was he a big part, but he was totally different. Because, Tony Stark, he's like a rock star, billionaire, philanthropist, can't even pronounce it.
Philanthropist.
There you go. That's why I have you here. That's why you can pronounce all the words. So I just know what they mean. And then Bruce Wayne, obviously billionaire. I mean, Clark Kent, he kind of was down low, but, he played the famous up, and then even some of the other ones. But he was basically like a nerd. He loved school. Adrian mentioned earlier, he was academically brilliant. He was basically a genius. But he was also bullied a lot in school. There's totally comics just going off. I think the main one is Flash Thompson.
Yeah.
Basically, they play your stereotypical jock, and basically they just beat him. I mean, they literally either they beat him up, they mock him, everything, and he just gets beat up through his whole high school career.
And I think like one of the important things too that really lets you navigate both parts of Spider-Man, both Peter Parker and Spider-Man, is the fact that like he doesn't become Spider-Man and then just like kicks Flash's ass. Like he has to go back to being that nerdy guy. Like he may show off a little and maybe not let himself get picked on as much, but he still has to be that, like he still has to be the normal kid. He can't be more than that.
Yeah, no. So despite being Spider-Man running the streets at night, saving people's lives, he's just being bullied and tormented and stuff throughout the day.
Yeah.
Throughout a lot of struggles. So, I mean, it kind of goes weird because, like I said, they kind of he deals with a lot of, like, I guess, psychological issues. I mean, between just being bullied, parents are just gone, mystery gone.
Yeah.
As I said, his uncle died, which kind of leads him to being Spider-Man. So he got the powers, and he kind of became, I guess, depending on the story, but most of them he became like a fighter, a wrestler of some sort.
Yeah.
Or some type of thing.
He went to seek fame after he got his powers.
Pretty much. I mean, however they want to portray it.
Fame and money.
Yeah,
like,
however he wants to portray it, but that's usually what happened. And then they kind of portray it, basically a robber comes in, however they want to. He has a chance to stop him, because obviously he had the thing. He chooses not to. He's like, why do I have to worry about this problem? Comes back along, the robber ends up killing his Uncle Ben.
Yeah. So he, like, tangentially killed his Uncle Ben.
Yeah. And so it kind of led to a lot of guilt and a lot of problems with him and everything else.
Which I think is one of the things that makes him such a great influence. And this is why I say Marvel has better, like, heroes, is because I think that they really work hard to make them flawed and have to deal with these problems. Is, like we said, everybody's parents die in comic books. It's like a prerequisite for being a hero. But the difference is Batman's parents die, he still has Alfred, he's still being taken care of, and he's rich. Superman's entire planet gets destroyed, but he has a nice nuclear family that raises him, and he's great. Spider-Man's parents die, he's then adopted by people, then his surrogate father dies, and he feels all the guilt, and he's left in a single-parent household that's poor, and has to pretty much fight his way through that, while also fighting his way through school, and fighting his way through bad guys, and it's really interesting. Like, that to me is an interesting character. That's an interesting person.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's an interesting character because, obviously, everything you just said, all that stuff basically happens to Batman, but you see the way Batman deals with it. Like, he
buries
broody.
it down in a cave.
Yeah, like, he's, like, super broody, but Peter Parker takes it on with, like, optimism and, like, a brighter personality, which was what I would hope. I mean, because Batman's super popular, but I would hope, like, the average person, if they dealt with the same kind of tragedy that Bruce Wayne dealt with and Peter Parker dealt with, I would hope that they would want to go, like, the Peter Parker route of, like, deal it with it optimistically and, like, you know, love people around you, where Batman on the other side of the spectrum just, like, pushes everybody away and, like, hates his life and all that stuff.
Yeah. Well, I think, too, like, I think the difference also is, like, I don't even know if I would even say that he's optimistic so much as he's real about it. Like, he realizes that he still has to get up and do these things. Like, it's a real reaction. We don't all have a bat cave to go, like, hide our problems in.
I know it's portrayed as well sometimes in I guess Batman as well as him being kind of portrayed as a bad guy and villain. But for the most part, people of Gotham like know he's a good guy.
That's not what J.J. Jameson says. He's an evil person. He's bad.
Exactly.
So I mean, in Spider-Man, he just gets ridiculed by the people, by the media for the most part. Every day he wakes up, and not only between having to go to school and get bullied, goes and saves 10 people, and then he gets blamed for it even happening by the newspapers and TV.
Yeah, like, he's not embraced. He has to work hard to be embraced. And he has to work. He works, goes to school, saves people, gets critiqued on saving people, and then wakes up and does it all again. Like, that's perseverance.
And gets with some ladies.
And a lot of those fail, too. I mean,
or he kills his girlfriend by not realizing that you'll snap your neck by letting her fall.
I guess, to me, what I want to know, I guess, depending on thing, because I know obviously in the movie she was probably most likely going to die anyways if you go by the Amazing Spider-Man portrayal they did with Andrew Garfield. The one I know, she fell off a bridge. And
it's the same situation.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, because I know he said I know he kind of plays it like I killed her, but I think she would have died anyways, if I'm correct. Falling from that bridge.
Yeah, no, like, in the comic book or in there, like, either she was gonna die by hitting the ground or she was gonna die because he tried to save her and she snapped up. Like, the distance was so far that she was gonna die.
I know. It's just kind of like, he plays the whole guilt of, like, I killed her, but she was going to die either way.
Yeah, he takes the responsibility on himself because he's a nice guy and he's a hero. Also, I know you ragged on the Andrew Garfield movies, but Gwen's death scene is actually really freaking good. Like, other than the fact that it happened in a clock tower instead of a bridge, it is scene for scene what happens in the comic, down to like what she's wearing. It is probably one of my favorite comic to screen like adaptations in just that part. So
I spent
props up to watching her die.
I spent that whole movie dreading that scene, knowing it was going to coming in every moment. I was like, she's walking upstairs.
I saw her in the coat, and I was like, oh, she's gonna die.
Yeah, Emma Stone's the only good part of those movies to me.
This is true.
Yeah, she is.
This is very true. Another thing, and even like I said, his girlfriend dies, so he doesn't get a lot that goes for him. I mean, he just kind of. Eventually, when they play it, after you get to college, eventually all the, I guess, benefits come out. But for the whole, like, high school and for everybody, the majority of the people know Spider-Man from the time, he just doesn't get anything. Yeah. Nothing goes his way.
And, like, I think one of the best things, too, is, like, he doesn't have, like, he is literally doing everything by trial and error this entire time.
Yes.
He doesn't have, like, a superior wisdom that tells him what to do or, like, a whole bunch of money that he can mess up things. It's like, if you make a bad web shooter, you're going to have to wait till next month's paycheck to make another web shooter.
Yeah, so speaking of, I guess, and that's what was cool about this character, another reason I love him and whatnot, and I guess as a little kid watching the thing, one of the reasons I love science and got into science for the part was, he loves science. He was like, not only was he academically brilliant, but he's like, great in biology, chemistry, mathematics. He made his own, web shooters, which vary electronics and mechanics. And he's obviously known as one of the smartest comic book characters of all time. I don't know exactly. I've seen lists where he's ranked like 6 out of everybody, maybe 8.
I think for Marvel, it's him and Tony.
Yeah, and I think if you add DC, I think he's like 4th or 5th.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I would place him higher than, because people like those lists label Superman up there, but like he has, but they have him up there because he can process information fast and all this stuff. That's because he's a goddamn.
It's because it's powered. It's
power based. Like, that's not fair. Yeah, like when you're looking at actual inherent genius, like you put him up there with the Reed Richards and the Batmans. Like that's how intelligent he is. Like the Mr. Terrifics. Like aside from like aliens, he's definitely like top 5.
I think I would put like Reed, Peter, Tony, Batman.
Tony above Peter, but he's up
put
there.
Tony above Peter.
Batman number 1.
But I would only put Tony above Peter because he's like older. But I think so far as like raw talent, I think Peter goes above.
Oh, Batman's definitely number 1. Just the stuff that he does in the comics is like way above anything. Street smart. He's the greatest detective of all time.
Which I will give that to, because they kind of talk about it a little bit, and you see it when we were talking about making mistakes. So because he's thinking and because he doesn't have a mentor, he seems to be very accidental prone.
Oh God, so many things happen because he messed something up.
Yeah, and so as smart as he is and as brilliant as he is, and he can make all this stuff, he makes some of the dumbest mistakes. Unfortunately.
Yeah, flawed characters. Yeah.
And what I like is, as we talked about Batman too, despite having superhuman strength, speed, agility, and all that stuff, which I tend to forget, he basically relies on his intelligence and makes, I like his web shooters. They kind of enhance some of they go as they change it. He kind of makes more devices. Not really a fan of some of the later tech they does.
You don't like the Batcopter? Or no, the Spider Copter?
Not really. Or the spider bike he used and the Ultimate Spider. But anyways, he uses his intelligence to beat characters, or to beat his villains for the most part. He just sits around, he's like, think, Spidey, think, what do we do? And that, instead of like, oh yeah, I can pick up a truck. And I just always found that like fascinating, that he relies all the way to his brain over even though, like, oh, I am super strong.
Like, he has the power to use brute force like Superman, but he doesn't.
No. Or at least that's how they've always
he's like legitimately beaten some of like the strongest superheroes out there.
Yeah.
Like, he's beaten the Hulk when he had like
ass. Yeah,
he's beaten the Hulk. He's in crossovers. He's beaten Wonder Woman. You know, he's definitely one of the strongest superheroes like out there for sure.
I think so far as like outsmarting your enemy wise, like I'd put him on the same like page as T'Challa, Black Panther. Because
Spider-Man
that's
would
pretty
destroy Black Panther.
I would go with that.
But Black Panther messed up Spider-Man when they get introduced.
That's fine.
Just saying.
Tom Holland would jack him up.
No.
And so, like I said, he struggles, and then not only between obviously intelligence, and then we go back to the flawedness, because that's basically kind of how we talked back and forth with this. Was kind of how some of the comics went. Like you have him doing something great, and then something bad happens, or then he's doing this, and it's just a giant constant juggle between him being a hero, his personal life, not messing up, having to learn. Oh, I have superpowers, but then what if we do this? He's just very sometimes hard to relate, or not really relate, but to put it all together, I guess.
Yeah.
We talk about the responsibility and thing, which ends up being with great power comes great responsibility, which he learned from his uncle. And sometimes he carries that to like heart, and sometimes it ends up being like a burden to him. So he always like feels responsible. We talked about like when his girlfriend Gwen died, that he feels responsible, and he really there was nothing he could do.
I can't remember the name of the guy. He's like really important. The scientist that he works for at the university that turns into the
Doc Connors.
Yeah, Doc Connors. He takes so much. He takes so much of the blame for Doc Connors pretty much doing it to himself. He's like, I should have stopped him. I should have known that this is what it was doing. And like he personalizes every single thing that happens.
Yes.
Which I mean other superheroes do too, but he like personalizes it and it drives him to like I guess better himself in those ways.
Mm-hmm. Which kind of gets to the whole point of like I love Spider-Man because of this and because of all these flaws, because of this like whole juggling, this whole psyche thing, and some of the internal problems and whatnot. Which is why I kind of I guess mention a little bit since Disney's bought the rights to Spider-Man. They've kind of, at least in my opinion, they've downplayed a lot of these. And it's kind of what my first fear when Disney bought this, and I know a lot of people had it as well, was, oh no, Disney bought this, what's going to happen? I hope they don't like turn this into kids.
When Disney bought the Marvel.
Yeah, when they bought the Marvel whole, I guess, universe.
When they bought Marvel.
Yeah, when they bought Marvel. And they kind of didn't do it so much, and they did a pretty good job for the most part with all their characters. But if there was one character I feel that got, as I like to say, got Disneyed and basically portrayed down, ended up being Spider-Man. Obviously,
how so? Like with what? Like in the Captain America Civil War movie?
Well, in the Civil War movie, and even in the one coming, you have basically now he has Tony Stark helping him in the new upcoming series. Even in the new cartoons that Disney would have, I guess, or with the way they portray him now.
He's mentored.
He's mentored. He has a team now. He's not doing anything on his own.
Isn't that what this movie's about, though? I haven't watched any of the trailers, but a lot of like the tone of it seems like he doesn't want any help to like take down Vulture and stuff. Well, it seems I think
this
is like his homecoming.
Yeah,
but I think he's talking specifically about like the Ultimate TV show that came out from.
Well, Disney. That one happened as well, but even in the movie,
Unlimited.
Well, even in the movie, it seems like at least from the trailer portray. I mean, Iron Man's there quite a bit, helping him along. Obviously, he's going to end up not wanting help because that's usually what happens. But he didn't really even have that before. He didn't even have like Tony Stark gives him stuff.
Yeah, and Tony Stark is featured on the posters and stuff.
Yeah, like Tony Stark is probably going to be a pretty decent sized part of the movie. Yeah. I guess we'll find out next week, obviously. Yeah. But just from the trailers and from what I know about it and everything, he's going to be a decent part. He will play like almost a father figure to Peter. He's going to give some technology. Like in the other stuff, Peter had to make everything himself. He made his own costume.
Yeah, I also think that like one of the things that I didn't like that they did with the new Spider-Man has been how they've done Aunt May. So, like...
Oh, she's hot in this one.
Yeah, that's what I was going to get to next. Yeah.
Well, not just that, and not being old. It's the fact that, like, the problems seem to be gone. Like, she jet sets. And I'm talking about the newer cartoon. Like, she jet sets. They have money. She has money to go do this. He just goes to school. He does whatever he wants. He's problem-free. Like, that's not, like... One of the best things about Spider-Man is what we just talked about, the fact that he goes through all these things, and that's not really what he has to deal with in that universe.
Yeah, because he went from basically having to help his aunt pay rent so they can live to now, oh no, I forgot to do my homework. Oh,
and
no.
It went from Aunt May is at work to Aunt May is out in
Canoeing.
the Sahara somewhere. Which, I mean, I think too, like, Aunt May is also really, like, I think Spider-Man does really well, too, because I think Spider-Man does a really good job at giving us well-rounded side characters. Like, I feel like I know who Mary Jane is, who Gwen Stacy is, who Felicia is, who Aunt May is. And I think in some of the newer stuff, or at least in that series, Aunt May, who's a really pivotal figure in what Spider-Man does, is kind of removed from that.
I don't know, I'm excited for it. Not like in the TV show, because I haven't watched like the TV show since like the Ultimate Spider-Man. Like, I've only seen a few episodes of the Ultimate Spider-Man, like the more popular ones. But for this movie, it looks this Spider-Man is definitely leaps and bounds better than the previous two Spider-Mans.
Yeah, I can probably agree with that. Yeah, it definitely looks a lot better.
Just from his little parts in Civil War, Tom Holland is a great Peter Parker.
Yeah.
And he is a great Spider-Man. And he's actually athletic. Like, have you seen him do, like, back handsprings and stuff in the gym?
Yeah.
The dude is legit.
Yeah, no, I completely
And they have
agree.
him in the Bronx, except for Aunt May being hot. I don't know why Aunt May's hot. You don't need to make Aunt May hot. Like, when is Aunt May ever
weird.
hot?
I mean,
But, you know, I can't say I'm not, you know, I'm worried about it, because name the last bad Marvel movie.
Yeah.
And Sony had 2 shots at it, and they blew it.
Yeah.
So.
No, I mean, obviously we don't know what they're doing in the MCU, but just on what Disney has done with it since they bought the character that we have now, it's like I'm with Matt on this one.
I just feel like
but I'm excited.
At least from way they created him, from like the conceit of like the orphan thing to the whole, you know, some of the problems they had, it just seems like they've downplayed a lot of them. They're still there. He still has that whole struggling like high school life and whatnot, but it just doesn't seem like it takes much of a toll as it seemed to take before on him. Like, he seemed like he had breakdowns before.
Yeah.
Like, what am I doing with my life right now? Can I do this? And now it's just kind of like, oh no, I skipped gym class.
Emo.
And also, like, one of...
Emo Parker.
The Spider-Man idea of how to write a teenager is still really present in a lot of the teenage characters that we get now. At least the successful ones.
Right.
Like, you have to highlight that not everything's, you know, rose-scented and great, but you don't have to make it dark and broody like Batman. You can show how to persevere, and that's something that I know a lot of people who have, and me too, who have been fans of the Miss Marvel comic, like, when I read it, I could think about some of the things I liked about Spider-Man being in there as well.
Yeah, he's definitely the character that basically anybody who gets those powers, who decides to be a superhero, like the average person, that's the stuff they're going to have to go through. Because unless you're like you're robbing banks and stuff, you still have to go to work the next day.
Yeah.
Like, you can't put all that stuff off. Like, you're not making any money off of being a superhero. So he's definitely the most relatable out of any superhero that I can think of.
Unless you're
because
Superman.
Batman gets to go be Batman, and he gets to go get Bruce Wayne after he puts his stuff on. You know, Superman has a cushy job.
Where he sells pictures of himself to people who like him.
Yeah, so like Peter Parker is definitely like the everyday man superhero, and if I was a superhero, it's what I would hope to be like. Yeah. If I don't like turn into like a Venom and go steal stuff.
Yeah.
Which, if we had more time, which I would totally love to go into the Black Suit Spider-Man and Venom.
Black Suit Spider-Man.
Which I love Black Suit Spider-Man, and obviously I love Venom as well, almost sometimes more than Spider-Man. But yes.
It's all right. When the Venom movie comes out, we can talk about it. Because I like Carnage better than I like Venom. So, and since Carnage is going to be in the new Venom movie, we can cross the streams there.
Hold on. What do you guys feel about Agent Venom?
We would not talk about Agent Venom. We will not talk about Agent Venom. I have amnesia. I will probably want to do a wormhole over this. Obviously, if one of you two like to come, that's fine. I will probably touch on it some. Obviously, the Venom movie still has a way to go. But, yeah. That is one thing that I really enjoy. That what they do with him for that. Especially from all the stuff. Does anybody have anything else they'd like to add? I know we're kind of running a little late here in time. No?
No, I guess like my only thing is just kind of like tied like to the things we've talked about together, I guess more explicitly, is I think the fact that he is the everyman superhero and like these problems of persevering through life is something that anybody from any culture, any background can deal with, and that's why I really think the character of Spider-Man works as Miles Morales. Or as Cindy, well, hers is a little different, but or as, you know, Spider-Man in India or Miguel, like those, like that, the essence of Spider-Man is something that everybody can get behind, because he's real, you know, like, yeah.
Which kind of brings me to, we always like to have our listeners, if they have feedback, we like to give them shout outs when they actually have something. One of our Twitter followers, Mars Blackman 26. Basically told us when we asked him, how do you feel about Spider-Man? Why do you like him? He said the reason Spider-Man has always been my super favorite hero is because he is the most relatable as far as everyday life. He's always battling with real life issues, whether it be high school, adulthood, or traumatic changes. Even though he has superpowers, I never seen him in that light like other superheroes. He also goes on, like, I really like how Tom Holland, and he actually liked Andrew Garfield portrayed the character to where he feels like anybody could become or be Spider-Man. He feels like that's why he's just one of the best relatable superheroes. Thanks for the feedback, Mars.
I was going to say, I always like it when our But Why Thos match up with fan But Why Thos. I feel like we've done a good thing.
Yes.
Before we wrap up, are you excited? Because by the time this comes out, like the day after, we're going to be in seats for Homecoming. Are you guys excited? Have you guys watched the trailers?
Yeah, I've watched the trailers. I'm really excited. I guess... I mean, I'm just expecting a lot because Marvel has it back in their hands. Yeah.
I'm excited, and I think it's going to be pretty good. I'm interested to see how they play the Vulture, because he always seems to be played weird compared to the comics. He kind of looks like a bird, and they usually play a machine. It's kind of weird. They kind of do the Falcon type thing with him. He goes from, like, wings to, like, other, like, mechanical stuff.
What about you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty excited. I think they picked the perfect person to do Vulture, like Michael Keaton.
Oh, yeah.
Like, that's the casting right there.
Well,
and like I said before,
yes,
he played Birdman. He's basically playing Birdman. And he used to be Batman. Like, it's perfect. I'm excited for it. Like I said before, Marvel hasn't put on a bad movie in quite a while, and I've liked all of it. So I can't see them doing something bad with here. I know, like, Tom Holland, like, leaked it because like I guess we've kind of known, but he's like, yeah, we're doing two more of these after this. So I mean, we're gonna get some more. I like that it's High School Spider-Man. I'm so excited for it to be High School Spider-Man. I'm hoping that they play him as smart still, because I said it before, but Andrew Garfield YouTubing how batteries work blew my mind in the theater and almost made me want to walk out. Like, they're doing good stuff with Tom Holland, so I'm excited to see where it goes.
I also want to point out two things. One, Tom Holland confirmed that Spider-Man has been in the MCU since Iron Man 2 and that little boy in the Iron Man mask. Like, the ages line up, so we confirmed that fan theory. I know, size, whatever.
Did he confirm that? Or, like, was that one of those things that he slipped it out and, like, Disney was like, no, don't do that?
I thought he confirmed it, like, definitively.
I saw it was confirmed. I saw it was confirmed definitively, but I didn't. It was kind of more of whatever.
Gotcha.
Anyway,
that's cool.
As always, you can find us at But Why Thos PC on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, as well as on twitch.tv/ButWhyThoPC. We will be streaming more often on that. You can find me personally at OhMyMythRandier on Twitter and Instagram. Adrian?
You can find me on Twitter at SuperReese93, SuperRuiz93.
And Matt.
Find me on Twitter at M18, DATTM18.
Everybody, thanks for listening, and bye, guys!